Please welcome Mr. Aaron Page and Ryan Whelan from Alliant.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We certainly appreciate the time on a Friday to jump in and listen to us talk. So happy Friday to everybody out there. We are, as the introduction said, going to be talking about accessible procurement and how we've built a service to help drive accessible procurement on top of the amazing stuff that Disability In is doing with Procure Access. So with that, I'll do brief introductions. My name, as mentioned, is Ryan Whelan, Vice President of Digital Accessibility Sales here at Alliant. Also a member of the Disability In Accessibility Leadership Committee. And through Disability In, we have learned a lot about accessible procurement over the last really 12 months. And we're building on top of that in the amazing work they're doing. And Aaron and I will talk about that a little bit today. With that, I'll hand it off to my rock star teammate to my left, Aaron Page.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Aaron Page, and I am the Director of Accessibility for Alliant. I oversee our digital auditing teams and our litigation support services, and I also join Ryan doing presentations like this. It's a pleasure to talk with you today. I was born with congenital glaucoma. I lost my remaining functional vision more than 15 years ago. I've been working in the digital accessibility space for the last 10 years, and I actually got started in the digital accessibility space working at the University of Montana, conducting software accessibility testing for the procurement teams there. And I start by mentioning that because you'll hear me refer back to that experience quite a bit throughout this presentation. Looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, a little disclaimer. Obviously, his name is Aaron Page. You'll hear me call him AP. We've worked together for over 6 years now.
6 years, yep.
and so it's kind of baked into my head to call him AP. So just a little forewarning on that front. With that topic today, accessible procurement, and what does that actually mean for organizations? And I think the biggest thing it means for all of us in this space is ensuring that we are procuring technology that has accessibility either baked in or that it's thought about in that process, right? Because I think one of the biggest challenges is we're deploying all of these third parties, everybody's using them on their websites, their web platforms, maybe third-party mobile applications. And if you procure technology that's inaccessible, that does create challenges for your end users, and it's much harder to sort of bake that in after the fact, right, AP? And so I'll kind of defer to you and hand it off to you to kind of talk about what does accessible procurement mean to you in your background?
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I mean, of course, with accessible procurement, we all want to procure the most accessible tools. We want to procure ones that are accessible to as wide a range of users as possible. But realistically, there aren't perfect software. There may not be a perfect solution that might fit your use case. And so oftentimes, accessible procurement will come down to looking through the available options, finding the one that is the most accessible, even though it might not be perfect, but finding the one that is the best among the available options, identifying those shortcomings so you can work with those vendors, and so you can lay out a roadmap for what do you do in the event that, let's say if you're at a university and you know that this software is not accessible to somebody like myself who is blind and uses a screen reader, you can have a plan in place for if a blind student attends the campus and has to use that software. So yes, it's about procuring the most accessible technologies up front, but it's also about getting that background information on what is not accessible in it so you can make it better and you can plan for how to get around it.
Yeah, perfect, Aaron. And on the next slide, I do have a survey, but I realize we're streaming, so I'm gonna skip our survey this morning. And with that, we'll kind of dive into why this is important. And I think there's a couple things among many that we've really learned, both pulling on Aaron's background and the work that we're doing with Disability In over the past 12 months, where we've sort of seen this boil up, right? And even at this conference this week, it was fascinating how many sessions were on accessible procurement or just procurement challenges. And so all of a sudden, all of us in the accessibility space are either scared of procurement or we're working on it. So, I think a couple things that's really, really important when we think about, procuring accessible technology, the biggest one kind of being, building contract language in at that level, right? Whether it's in your service agreements, whether it's in your MSA, doesn't mean that a product is going to be accessible today, but creating clear roadmaps for those vendors to ensure that they are building accessibility in over time, right? 6, 12, 18 months down the line, creating those benchmarks, doing those checks, and ensuring that, at the end of the day, stuff that you procure and deploy to your consumers is accessible over time. And I think, one of the biggest things we get asked on this service and all the work that we're doing in procurement is, does Alliant have language for this? And we do as a corporate partner of Disability In, but I would really, really, really strongly recommend everybody check out Disability In. If you haven't, check out the Procure Access program that they've built. They have an amazing procurement toolkit that can kind of help with some of that language on the back end. And with that, I'll kind of turn it to you, AP, because I think one of the things we're seeing, and all of us are certainly seeing, and there's been conversations this week all over the place on this, is we're seeing these new regulations come out, right? The Office of Management and Budget's release on Section 508 in December called out, ensure that you're procuring accessible technology. Ensure this is at the forefront. HB 21 in Colorado. We're talking with a lot of Colorado organizations this week and outside of the conference. And again, in their FAQs, it's you are liable for third-party technology that you're deploying. So with that, Aaron, I'll kind of hand it to you and kind of talk about some of the stuff we're seeing on the legal front, because there is inherent risk to procuring and deploying inaccessible technology.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. Little disclaimer just up front. I am not a lawyer. Ryan is not a lawyer. We do not provide legal services at Alliant. What we are accessibility subject matter experts, and we provide litigation support services. So we work with clients, legal teams in the event you might be targeted by an accessibility-related lawsuit or demand letter or other kind of legal action. Our goal is to work with your legal teams and support your strategy, provide that necessary expertise. So just that disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer, don't take this as legal advice or as gospel. But generally speaking, if you, just like Ryan mentioned, if you look at resources from Disability In and other organizations, I think if you ask most of the accessibility professionals who are attending this conference, are you or are you not liable for the accessibility of the third-party tools, apps, and services that you integrate into your site or that you use within your organization? They are going to tell you yes. And certainly that is something that we see in our litigation support team as well, that those are definitely a liability. And so an example, I won't name the name of the particular piece of software, but we have seen a big spike just in the last 2 to 3 months where a particular size guide, third-party component that a lot of e-commerce sites like to use if, say, you sell clothing and you want to be able to display all the various clothing sizes and how does each item fit? What are the different fits? There is a third-party service out there that specializes in providing that on Shopify and other e-commerce platforms. And we have seen within just the last 2 to 3 months, this one particular third-party vendor be called out at least 6 times. And so you really see this trend where once it's known that a particular third-party vendor is inaccessible or creates accessibility issues, then it's just a matter of these plaintiff firms going out and looking for any website that uses that tool because they know that that tool is not accessible. So all they have to do is run a scan on your site to see if you are using that tool. And now they know you are using something that creates accessibility issues, and that certainly increases the risk.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so with that, we're going to kind of jump into flow-wise for the conversation this morning. You know, we've framed up procurement and why it's important. Let's jump into some challenges, right? And then we'll kind of talk about some strategies that we've helped teams build really in the last, year plus to think about, integrating these best practices into your procurement process. With that, I think that the biggest challenge that I see day in, day out, having conversations with clients on this front is the procurement team is not trained in accessibility. Nor should we expect them to be, right? They have a very strategic job. They're niche experts on procurement. Their job is to, get things across the line, get them done, go through the contract negotiations, et cetera. We can't expect them to be accessibility professionals. And I think that's something that, Aaron, certainly in your background is, even if you have these processes in place, it's like, well, we want a third-party VPAT or an ACR, or we just want a VPAT or ACR. I wouldn't say most we see are not third-party.
Right.
And procurement sort of thinks of it as a checkbox, right? But it can't be thought of as a checkbox. I know you want to talk a little bit about that of, ensuring that these things that are that procurement has the support.
Right, absolutely. One of the big problems that we encountered very quickly at the University of Montana, and just for a little bit of background for those of you who might not be familiar, the University of Montana received a complaint through the Office of Civil Rights back in 2012, 2013, and in the end they did sign a settlement agreement, and one of the requirements of that settlement agreement was that the campus had to conduct its own accessibility testing on any software that it was looking to procure for use on campus. And so I happened to be a student there software at the time, working on my undergraduate. And so they brought me on as a student employee to do that software testing, and then after I graduated, even as a staff member, to continue to do that testing. But I was the one and only person doing that testing for the entire campus of over 15,000 students at the time, multiple colleges, tons of different programs, only one person conducting that software accessibility testing. And processes were put in place because in order to meet the requirements of our settlement agreement, this is what we had to do. It essentially made it so if you put in a request to purchase software, an automatic hold would be placed on it, and it would say that it is being held for accessibility review. And that created a lot of pressure and a lot of negative perception around accessibility because, let's be honest, if you've got a dean or the provost or the university president, they're chomping at the bit. They want this piece of software because it's going to fit into their master plan and they want it now. They don't want to wait for an accessibility review. And then when you have only one person conducting those reviews, and as we all know, everybody, accessibility teams are always under-resourced, right? Understaffed. They don't have infinite resources. With only one person to be able to do those, the backlog grew very quickly. And so it wasn't long before we reached a point of having, 6 to 8 weeks before software accessibility reviews could be turned around. And again, that created more of that negative perception of accessibility, and it created a desire for many to try to get around it, right? And so, for example, we saw instances where a department might instead just go and purchase the software using the department's credit card rather than going through the formal purchase order and procurement process, because if they just went and did it using the department's credit card, they didn't go, that hold for accessibility review didn't fall into place. And so it's really important to try to ensure that the accessibility processes and procedures that are in place support those teams and they don't create those really insurmountable barriers. And something like a 6 to 8 lag time before you can get an accessibility review really can be untenable, especially if you try to explain it to somebody like a dean or a provost or the campus president. They don't want to hear that.
Yeah, no, exactly, right? And I think we're going to talk about some of those strategies that we've helped teams implement to cut down that timeline, because you're exactly right. That's a big challenge for teams. In the last one that I know you and I talk about a lot with even clients, right, that we're working to support accessibility assessments and we're doing live user testing for, I think there's still this big myth out there that accessibility really cuts down on creativity or cuts down on product features. And I think that's, a challenge that we help teams face every day. But you want to talk a little bit about that, Aaron? Because I think it's a big challenge, not just in procurement, but with accessibility in general. It's not to say you can't find, you're probably not going to find a perfectly accessible product, as you noted. But you might be able to find something that has alternative solutions, and then you can help raise awareness with that vendor of how to build accessibility in. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know it's something we hear every single day in the world that we live in.
Yes. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a brain freeze here.
The misconception that accessibility will sacrifice product features.
About product features, yes. So, it really underscores, and I think most of us who are in the accessibility space, we know this about the importance of considering accessibility at the design phase, right? Getting going on accessibility as early as possible, because once you've already developed the product and you've already committed to the code, tacking on accessibility after the fact can be a lot more difficult, and it can also be a lot more expensive. As Ryan said, there may not be a perfectly accessible solution out there, one that every feature, every functionality is going to be accessible. And so what you can do, though, is by conducting those procurement assessments, reviewing the software during the procurement process, you can try and identify those accessibility limitations, work with the vendor to help remediate some of those, and strategize for what you do to ultimately be able to get around them. As Ryan said, we're not saying that you can't procure the piece of software. It's not about blocking progress. What it is about getting the necessary information so you can work to make things better, and you can have that plan in place for what you're going to do if it really does become a barrier for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, we've kind of talked about the challenges, and maybe we're preaching to the choir a little bit on these challenges because most teams face them. So let's dive into some of the best practices that we've built out in really helping teams think about this. And I think one of the biggest ones, whether we're talking about procurement, whether we're talking about accessibility more holistically in organizations, it's the fact that accessibility has to be organizational wide. You have to organically build internal champions. And if you don't have internal champions, certainly in procurement, but even with accessibility in general, it becomes very, very hard to really drive progress on all fronts of accessibility. So, Aaron, I think you have a really telling story, right? And I think something we help organizations with as well is doing like immersion trainings where they get the opportunity to see you struggle through a website, see you struggle through an application, and it can really help build that buy-in from the top down.
It really can. This was something that I learned very quickly after I became a student employee at the university. And one of the things that we did was provided workshops and trainings for faculty and staff on how to make your documents more accessible, how to make your departmental web pages more accessible, how to make course content within the learning management system more accessible. And very quickly, one of the things that I realized was the power of a live screen reader demo. And it never fails, and that when you actually do that demo, for folks, everybody here at CSUN has likely had an opportunity to see screen readers in action. You've heard them. You know what it's like to use a screen reader and what it sounds like. Most people don't. And so when you start off with that demonstration, here is what the screen reading software sounds like. Here's what it sounds like when I open an image-only PDF. I will tell you, I so many times could hear gasps in the audience when I would open up an image-only PDF. The PDF document looks just fine. You would never think that there was a problem with it. But when I go to read it out with my screen reading software, the screen reader says, alert, empty document. That would almost always create that light bulb moment where people will go, oh my gosh, I understand now that even though it looks fine to me, I had no idea that it was inaccessible. I don't know if something's accessible. Help me. And that was always a very powerful thing. And one story that I really like to tell is it took a while, but eventually we were actually able to get in front of the university president and his cabinet to do an introduction to accessibility, just like a 30-minute overview on what accessibility is, why it's important, what it is that we are doing on campus to help promote and encourage accessibility. And again, one of the big things that we started that presentation for the president and his cabinet with was the screen reader demo. And there again, light bulb moment was just going off in that room, and people were far more engaged. And while I would love to say that after this one little workshop and the screen reader demo, we had access to unlimited resources and we got everything that we wanted as soon as we asked for it, that wasn't the case. However, certainly what we saw was a lot more buy-in, right? The university's legal counsel was a lot more proactive in reaching out to us. If we contacted the president's office for anything, we got responded to much more quickly. Heck, even as a student there, I remember just walking between classes and I ran into the president and he remembered who I was, remembered my name and stopped and said hello. That type of experience can really help build those accessibility champions and get you that executive buy-in that is really key to getting the resources and the support that you need to implement a successful accessibility program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of lends to the next point that we have, and that is like it takes an army, right? Whether we're talking about procurement, whether we're just talking about accessibility and digital accessibility in general, you have to build buy-in. And I've had so many conversations this week with higher ed departments, government entities, and everybody's understaffed. And we kind of talked about that, right? You have to have support from marketing, IT, legal, procurement to really build accessibility in, because you can't have, or you can have best practices in place and you can have policy in place. But at the end of the day, if marketing is just going to their own thing and IT is doing their own thing and no one's following those processes, it all falls apart, right? So I do think, to Aaron's point, like building those other champions internally, and that can organically sort of spread, accessibility across the organization. That can become rocket fuel for everything that you're doing in procurement and accessibility more holistically. The other thing that I think we have learned, and I think, certainly I have learned over the past, I would say 6 or 8 months, having a lot of conversations on accessibility and how procurement plays, or how accessibility and procurement, have to be blended together. And the biggest one that I have found is we have to bridge this gap, right? We have to bridge the gap between the procurement and the accessibility team. I know, Aaron, we've been on a few calls in the last, couple months where the procurement team is meeting the accessibility team on our call about this service, right? And I think,
yep.
And so they're doing intros to us. They're also doing intros to their own internal, team members. And I think that's a big struggle. And I think what Disability In is doing with Procure Access and raising that awareness is really, really critical, because those two parts of your organization have to be in lockstep to really ensure that you're reducing that legal risk and driving accessibility in those accessibility through procurement reviews. With that said, I think we've also learned a few things, and that is, how can procurement support the accessibility team? And I think at a baseline level, it is ensuring that those practices are in place and followed, right? And I think, something, again, we're probably preaching to the choir here, but maybe not, right? I think it's okay to walk before you run, right? I think everybody wants to tomorrow have the absolute perfect procurement, process in place around accessibility, but it doesn't just happen overnight, right? So I think, Aaron, one of the things that we talk with a lot of teams about is then how does the accessibility team support procurement? And I think one of the things you've even mentioned already is, ensuring that there's quick turnaround time, right? 7 to 10 business days, you have to have that back to them, or they're just going to ignore you, quite frankly.
Find a way around it.
Yeah, find a way around it. And the other one is, offering subjective third-party testing. And that is something we have talked about a lot with organizations, because the challenge that I think even mature accessibility organizations face, if they have internal testers that can do this testing, which most teams don't, but if they do, a lot of vendors want a third-party review, right? Because it's like, well, of course you're going to tell me it's not accessible for contract leverage. So do you have anything to add to that, Aaron, about this sort of like having subjective third-party reviews in the procurement process?
No, I think it's hugely important, and it comes down to as testing, as you mentioned, but also VPATs, which we'll talk more about VPATs later on. But the importance of, one of the things that we did at the university was any software that was being requested for procurement, we also reached out to the vendor and we asked them for a VPAT. And one of the things that we always immediately looked for on the VPAT was anything that would indicate that it was created by a third-party accessibility vendor, right? Does it have, any other vendor's logo on it? Does it have one of these vendors' contact information on it? If not, if it just looks like this was created by the software's own internal IT team, the contact on it is the company's IT department, it doesn't have an actual accessibility coordinator, there wasn't a third party who created the VPAT, that really speaks to the credibility of it. And certainly at the university, we actually came up with a bit of like a scoring system to be able to compare VPATs one to another. And that was something that we took as a big negative to the score, was if it was not created by a third party, or if it was unclear whether the VPAT came from a third party accessibility company, that was a big negative in terms of the credibility of that VPAT.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we will talk a little bit more about VPATs as we go on, but I think that's a perfect segue into the now what question, right? And I think we are a now what industry, accessibility is, because again, we get these processes in place, or we have an assessment done on our own internal products, and then it's like, now what, right? How do we actually push this forward? And so we've talked about, timelines being an issue, staff being an issue, pushing third-party vendor reviews. And so what we have done here at Alliance is we've built a product called Procure Ensure, and it really does help build on what the Procure Access team at Disability In is doing and helps drive this forward. And in talking with the Disability In team and talking with Jeff and talking with others there, the challenge that a lot of organizations face is, even if they instill the Procure Access program, how do we then follow up on that? How do we ensure third-party reviews are done? How do we, break those timeline barriers? And so what we have built is a Procure Ensure service that allows our organizations that are working with us to get accessibility assessments back in 5 to 7 business days, and it's a free service. And I think, AP, I'll kind of defer to you now to talk about, because you've built a lot of this out, and it's what you're day in, day out supporting our clients at Alliant. So do you want to talk a little bit about the process, and then I can talk about the intake form sort of on the back end of that?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So I'll start by saying that at Alliant, when we are conducting digital auditing, we conduct all of our audits in teams of 2. Consisting of what we call a sighted auditor. So that's generally somebody without any type of a disability. Their role is to check for issues such as color contrast, focus indicators, closed captionings on videos, keyboard-only navigation, those types of issues. And we pair them up with what we call a screen reader auditor. And that is somebody like myself, somebody who is either fully blind or is pretty significantly low vision, uses the screen reading software on a daily basis. Their role is obviously to ensure that the software, the application, is accessible to users of screen reading software. And it is our opinion that really you can only ensure really strong accessibility through a paired model like this. If I were to just try and audit something on my own and I click a button, nothing reads out to my screen reader, it could be really hard for me to determine what exactly it was that happened there. Whereas a sighted auditor, they can click a button and they'll know that something appeared. They might not be well able to test how does that actually work with the screen reading software. Did the dialog box receive focus? Did it announce out correctly? That type of thing. And so it is our strong belief that you can only provide accessibility for all, the best and most accurate results through that paired model. Not only does it ensure you're as conformant to WCAG as possible, but it helps ensure that the user experience is the same as well. So if a sighted user sees, the navigation menu first, followed by the main content, that's the order in which the screen reader user should be hearing that out. And by having a paired auditing approach, we can compare notes going back and forth to make sure that that experience is the same. That same mindset has been applied to Procure Ensure as well. So to start off with, all of the Procure Ensure assessments that we do also include teams of two, so a sighted auditor and a screen reader auditor. So every one of these assessments includes one of our native screen reader users as well. So you can be certain that actual users of assistive technology, and I should be careful when I say users, we're not just hiring blind users, we are hiring blind engineers. These are folks who have backgrounds in web accessibility, WAS, CPACC, CPWA certifications. And so any of these Procure Ensure assessments will include one of our screen reader auditors there as well. So what is a Procure Ensure assessment? So a Procure Ensure assessment is not a comprehensive audit. It only, on average, we shoot to do a Procure Ensure assessment in about 2 to 3 hours. And realistically, there is no way you are going to fully review a piece of software, every feature, every function, in 2 to 3 hours. Truly, I think the idea of reviewing every feature, or every piece of functionality in a piece of software is not realistic, right? Imagine trying to say, I'm going to go conduct an audit of Microsoft Excel, and I'm going to go review every feature and every functionality in Microsoft Excel to determine how accessible it is. You will be conducting that audit until the end of time. And so our goal is not to try to just review everything within the application. The way that we conduct Procure Ensure, we start off with an intake form. And the intake form has some pretty straightforward questions. It asks you, what's the name of the software? Who's the vendor? Who's the contact that you're in touch with? Do you have credentials to access this software already? But then another really key question that we ask, what are you going to use this software for? Yes, probably you're going to use it for more than just one thing. Most software has lots of features, lots of functionality, lots of bells and whistles. But what's the primary use case that you are looking to acquire this software to do? Because that is what we want to test when we go to do our Procure Ensure assessment. And so I always like to use Calendly as the example when I'm talking about this, because I think it's a great example that illustrates how it goes. If anybody from Calendly sees this video, love your product. Be sure to contact us if you have any questions about our findings on it. But when we conduct a Procure Ensure assessment, we provide you a report, and that report is color-coded to try to make it as easy to digest as possible, and it uses green, yellow, red. And so green indicates that the software was great. We didn't encounter any accessibility issues. That basically never happens. Or it might mean that the accessibility issues that we encountered, we felt were relatively minor, right? They aren't going to pose a truly significant barrier to somebody who's trying to complete that task that we tested. A yellow rating indicates that we did find accessibility issues. However, the accessibility issues that we encountered were not so severe as to make it impossible to complete the task. However, they might require the user to have stronger knowledge of the screen reading software. It might require them to use various workarounds in order to get through that flow. But it didn't pose a complete do not pass go, showstopper, blocker level issue. And then red. Red denotes when we went and conducted our assessment on this, we encountered issues that were so severe, we don't expect that somebody using a screen reader or using other assistive technology would actually be able to complete the task that you are saying you are looking to purchase this software to do. And so the Calendly example. What is the way in which most users are going to interact with Calendly? Yes, there's the back-end component. You know, Ryan uses Calendly to manage his calendar. He's got the back-end component of it where he can, generate the link and connect it to his calendar, all of that type of thing. But the vast majority of users, the way that they're going to engage with it is they're going to use it to book appointments, right? They're going to click the link in Ryan's email signature so they can book an appointment with him. And so when we conducted a Procure-Ensure assessment on Calendly, that was the flow that we tested. Can a user of screen reading software, a keyboard-only user, can they actually go through that entire process of clicking on that link and booking an appointment with somebody start to finish without running into any significant accessibility barriers? And so what we found when we conducted our assessment with Calendly was, yes, I certainly could, and our cited auditors who conducted keyboard-only testing found that, yes, they were able to toggle those links, go through the entire flow, and complete the process of booking an appointment. However, we ran into some issues, and one in particular that stood out was the time zone drop-down. And so when you go to book an appointment, there is a drop-down menu that you can use to select the time zone for the times that are being displayed. That drop-down, we found, did not work for screen reader and keyboard-only users. However, that didn't make it impossible to complete the task of actually booking an appointment using Calendly. And the reason for that is because Calendly defaults to using your current time zone based on your location, the time zone that is set in your computer's operating system, wherever it's getting it from, it defaults to using your current time zone. So it would be a problem if I needed to pick a different time zone. Let's say I wanted to see the times displayed I live in Montana, if I wanted to see them displayed in Pacific rather than in Mountain Time, I would not be able to make the selection to actually do that. But I can actually see the times that are available, and I am able to select when using that default time zone that is selected. And so that is not an insignificant barrier, right? It is definitely something that should be resolved, but it didn't make it impossible to complete that workflow of actually clicking the link and booking up the appointment. And so when we generated a Procure-Ensure assessment for Calendly, we gave it a yellow rating because there are some issues, but were the issues so severe as to make it impossible to use the software? The answer was no. And in the vast majority of cases, with just a pretty quick assessment, 2 to 3 hours, you'll be able to get a feel for what the case is there, especially if it's red, right? If there are issues that are just so severe that make it impossible to use, that is likely going to become very apparent very quickly. So what do we provide with a Procure-Ensure assessment? We actually provide you a report. As I mentioned, it uses that kind of green, yellow, red color scheme. Along with the color, we provide you, so if it's green, we will actually highlight some accessibility features or accessibility benefits. What are the things that they are doing right? Maybe they use really good color contrast. Maybe focus indicators are strong. Maybe they've got phenomenal heading levels. Every image has really descriptive alt text. These are accessibility features or benefits, call it what you will, that make the product strong, right? And we want to flag those wins. So when we provide that green rating, we highlight what are some of the accessibility features in that software that we noted. When we provide a yellow rating, we provide you, again, accessibility features. What is the piece of software doing and doing well? But we also provide you with accessibility issues. Okay, what were some of the things that we encountered? Why did we give it the yellow rating rather than the green rating, right? So in the Calendly example, that drop-down menu was certainly cited as one of the accessibility issues that we encountered during the assessment. And then with a red rating, we don't even bother with providing accessibility features because at this point, it's a red rating, it's a do not pass go type of thing. And so our goal is to highlight what are those key issues that we saw that caused us to give it a red rating, that made us feel like this software would be unusable. And so ultimately, the goal is to be able to provide a really high-level report that's easy to understand for anybody who's even not an accessibility subject matter expert, that can be used to help you drive those conversations forward with those software vendors around the topic of accessibility and with results that are coming from an independent third party.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely perfect, AP, because that's somewhat I was going to talk about, right? Like we went through challenges at the start, right? Doing third-party assessments. Well, we've checked that box, right? Aligned as an independent third party. Doing this in a streamlined fashion, right? Between the intake form and our ability to turn these around in 5 to 7 business days, your procurement team isn't waiting 6, 8, 12 weeks. So again, we've removed that challenge. And I think that the final one that we can kind of talk about is, if your procurement team from that vendor gets, an ACR or a VPAT, same difference, gets a HECVAT. We've talked with the HECVAT team this week that built that out. If you get that, I think for a lot of teams over the years, that's been well, then we're good, right? So we will also do I'll call it a HECVAT, VPAT, ACR review. Is that the right way to say it? As part of this process as well. So you want to quickly talk about that, and then I can kind of talk about the now what.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, as Ryan said, one of the things that we'll also do alongside a Procure Ensure assessment is we'll review any accessibility documentation that is being provided. So if they provide a HECVAT, a VPAT, a ACR, we'll review that. And ultimately, our goal is to review that to see if what that documentation is stating aligns with what we are seeing when we actually go to test the software. And so VPATs are kind of the easiest one to understand or use as an example here. And so if you have a VPAT, our goal is to look through those success criteria and see what support level they have, and does that match what we're seeing. So for example, if in the VPAT you say that you support 1.1.1 non-text content, what that means is I should not encounter unlabeled images when I go to your site, right? Or when I go to use that application. If you say that you support 2.1.1 keyboard-only navigation, then what that means is that one of our sited auditors should be able to use all of the features and functionality in that flow with a keyboard without issue. And so the goal is to just review that to make sure that those results align, and we provide a report on that as well. And in that report, we highlight 4 key sections. We highlight the VPAT's credibility, right? And so as we kind of talked about, the importance of those third-party assessments, right? Back when I was at the University of Montana, if the VPAT wasn't clearly generated by an independent third party, that was something we took into consideration, and we considered it a big negative against the credibility and the validity of the VPAT. And we have heard that time and time again, that it is so important to have these assessments conducted by an independent third party rather than the software's own internal accessibility teams. And so when we do one of these validations, we will look to see who wrote that documentation up. Are they credible? If it was just written up by the IT department of the software vendor, that is far less credible than a VPAT that is clearly generated by Alliant or any of our other competitors in the space, right? Then we also look for timeliness, the timing of it. So, I think if you ask most folks, they will say, the numbers will probably vary, but the older a VPAT gets, the less likely it is to be accurate and to be useful, right? And so for me, I tend to think about it as a year. If something is more than a year old, when you consider the pace of software nowadays, how often they are updated, things change, the idea that you have a VPAT written over a year ago and that's still going to be accurate doesn't hold a lot of weight with me. And so another thing is the versioning, right? So if the VPAT said that it was created based on version 1.4, but we go to do our Procure Ensure assessment, the current version now is 2.1. The idea of that VPAT being super accurate goes down, right? And so in the timing section, we highlight how old is the VPAT, what impact does that have, and if it cites a specific version, what version is the VPAT citing versus what is the current version now? Because those are big things to consider in the terms of the credibility of the VPAT and how much weight it is that you're going to lend to it. Then we have a section that we'll say for VPAT accuracy. And in here, we're just going to provide a high-level overview of, accessibility. I think if you ask most people in the space, we all recognize that there can be some subjectivity into it, right? WCAG requires interpretation. Not everybody is going to think in exactly the same way. Different accessibility engineers might have slightly different takes on how they want to approach something. And so I don't think we've ever had one where we 100% agreed with everything that was said in the VPAT. However, we've certainly had ones where we felt for the most part the VPAT was right. It was accurate. It was providing a relatively honest picture of the software. And so in the accuracy section of the report, we provide just a high-level overview of that. What is our overall takeaway? Do we think it's lying to you, or do we think that it is honest, right? Do we think that it's worthwhile? And then we have an issues and concerns section. And so in the issues and concerns section, we will highlight any discrepancies, right? As I just said, I don't think we've ever had one where we 100% agreed with everything that was stated in the VPAT. We always find some level of discrepancy. And so those discrepancies we want to highlight there. A recent example, the one I did just most recently, the team, the VPAT itself said that it supports sensory characteristics, that no information is being conveyed to users based on shape, size, or positioning. And when our team went to conduct the assessment, they found that that was not true. Within that 2 to 3 hour assessment, they identified examples where sensory characteristics were being used to convey information to users. And so that didn't mean the whole VPAT was wrong. Actually, for the most part, we agreed with what was being said in that VPAT. The big outlier was around sensory characteristics. And so when we provided the validation report at the end, in the accuracy section, we said overall, we do feel that the VPAT is correct and is providing a clear understanding of the accessibility of the software. And in the issues and concerns section, we highlighted the discrepancy around sensory characteristics, that while the VPAT states that sensory characteristics are supported with no exceptions, our team did encounter instances where sensory characteristics were being used to communicate information to users. And so those 4 sections, credibility, timeliness, accuracy, and issues and concerns, are all included in this report that we will provide when validating the accuracy of a VPAT, a HECVAT, an ACR, or whatever the other accessibility documentation is that has been provided.
Yeah, perfect, AP. And with that, I think we're literally out of time. So we went right up against the hour.
I burned up all the time. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. And so with that, obviously, if you have any questions, come find us. Come find someone in our Purple Alliance shirts throughout the day. You can also contact us via our website or our info at email. And I just want to thank everybody for attending not only this session, but the conference in general. Attendance has been fantastic this year, as we've all seen. So, the more champions we have in the space, the more we can drive accessibility forward. So thanks for coming.
Thank you all.